once upon a time, there were a bunch of frogs in a gigantic pot, and some of the frogs realized that the temperature was slowly being turned up in this pot, and that eventually all of the frogs in the pot would be boiled alive because none of the frogs would realize the temperature was being turned up. And some of these frogs that realize this tried escaping the pot, but they found out, some of them the hard way, that the pot was being guarded by predators like snakes. So if any frog tried to jump out, they would be eaten right away. And they also found out that it was pretty much impossible to sound the alarm and to let all those other frogs knowing what was going on, because all the frogs in the pot were too busy swimming and trying to survive, except for those few frogs, including the elected bullfrogs, who were sitting on lily pads and would likely be protected when the water got too hot and all the rest of the frogs got boiled. So that's pretty much where the story left off. And they were trying to confront those elected bullfrogs and trying to tell them about the issue and maybe see if they were behind it. But those bullfrogs pretty much stayed perched on their lily pads and ignored all the frogs that were trying to ask them about what was going on and what they were gonna do to resolve the issue. And instead of helping, they introduced their own stories to try to discredit the boiling pot conspiracy, or conspiracy theory as they labeled it. And those frogs that were trying to sound the alarm realized that those governing frogs weren't gonna do anything and that they were likely behind the issue and that they were likely intentionally trying to boil all the frogs. So that realization led to a lot of frogs becoming very vocal and very political. And the problem really was that if all the frogs did nothing and just kept swimming around in the pot, then the powers that be would keep turning up the temperature until it was boiling, and then they'd all be gone. But if some of the frogs, the ones that realized their problem, tried to bail, then they would be eaten by all those snakes and predators hanging outside of the pot. But if they managed to convince all of the frogs in the pot to jump out at once, then they would very likely escape all those predators because there would be too many frogs jumping all out at once. So some of those more savvy frogs decided that what they needed to do was to turn up the temperature quicker so that all the frogs would go into emergency mode and jump out all at once. And they even figured out how to reach over the side of the pot and turn the temperature up. But the problem was, every time they did that, the powers that be realized what they were doing and turned the temperature back down. So, all that happened really was that more frogs woke up and realized the game that was being played with them. But the majority of the frogs just kept swimming and didn't even notice how hot it got all of a sudden. So, yeah, that's what was happening. So, it was kind of back to the drawing board and how to save all those frogs.